This boy is about to be attacked by the dragon maze, all while saving Mark, who with idiotic actions put both their lives at risk. Every professor is scared for their lives, and the other students are sure both are going to die. But the boy himself is in a moment of pure, absolute focus. As the jaw approaches, he recalls why he's here. He's in the mage race to advance a class, but of course it's not a normal race. This one tests your teleportation skills, a magic that could seem simple, but the actual talent in it is performing it extremely fast and precisely, since each teleport requires a complex calculation. So jumping from one cliff to another, and risking falling to your death while doing that complex math was way too much for the majority of the students. Not for Shirone. He had been progressing with insane speed, to the point where other students were trying to make him fail, even at the risk of their own grades, because no one wanted the orphan to be better than the nobles of the academy. But he kept advancing while everyone watched anxiously. Then something went wrong. They got to the dangerous level 10 area. This wasn't supposed to be deployed in today's test. Heck, this wasn't even used for students. In this area, hundreds of mazes are thrown in the direction of the mage, increasing the complexity of the magic calculation hundreds of times. And since you're moving at what is basically the speed of light, one small mistake and your body destroys itself against any of the traps. Mark couldn't accept losing to a peasant, so even though the test looked risky, he dove into it to be acknowledged. In the beginning he was confident. Teleporting through the traps felt like a piece of cake. But those tests are brutal, and the complexity keeps increasing to unseen levels, and soon enough he found an uncrossable path, a moment where his calculations weren't able to find a solution. He was about to crash and get completely crushed, when Shirone's hand came in clutch and saved him. Everyone in class was confused. How could he not only cross that, but save someone at the same time? He kept advancing and advancing, each teleport faster than the one before. The maze kept shrinking, and the available paths became fewer each time, but he didn't hesitate. Using his magic world sense, he could calculate the path in less than 1/10 of a second, and he kept crossing it, faster and faster. And the director couldn't believe what he was seeing. Did that boy not have a limit? As the traps decreased in size and increased in difficulty, he also decreased the distance of his teleports, which theoretically is harder, because the shorter it is, the more calculations you have to do. And even though it should be impossible, he was teleporting so many times in such a short span of time that to those watching it looked like he was moving like a rainbow. And that's when he faced the so-called dragon maze, an impossible maze with hundreds of millions of possibilities but only one correct answer. The jaw came. The director was scared of that boy dying, and the students couldn't even bring themselves to look. But the boy relaxed. He was alive, so all he had to do was think. 1/10 of a second, 100th of a second, 6 turning points, 9 teleportations to find the only escape route. He had to go down to 1,000th of a second, because the first route was impossible to pass with Mark. Students looked away, and the director, who was anxious, in the next second dropped his mouth open. 7 blinks and the boy crossed it. Every student ran shouting, "No way," and boom, he arrived. Exhausted, yeah, but intact. Even the hardest to win girl had to admit he looked way too cool for someone who just joined the academy. Yeah, this boy breaking records, now surrounded by all the students, leaving every professor with their mouth open and the headmaster without words, is someone who recently arrived at this place. So who is he? Well, for that we gotta go back to the echo of a baby howling through a forest at night. In a cabin in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by traps, someone picks up his axe thinking somebody must have snuck in, and a rat like that will pay with their life. He slowly circles the house, and as he hears something moving he dashes with his axe, but the stable was empty? He's confused, until he glances to the side and sees a baby. He picks it up and listens to its heart, and for a second he felt strangely happy that heart was still beating. His wife appears, confused, asking Vincent what the commotion is. Then she sees the baby in his hands and asks where it came from. Like what? And the 200 pounds of muscle just replies that maybe it's their baby, and from that moment on, magic was said to exist. When the baby first moved his hands, rain began to fall, finally bringing water to the village's dry land. The villagers celebrated with joyful songs, and this mysterious child later protected them from every threat with his strange power. Even so, he kept studying so he could help the village even more. In time, people turned his powers into legend and called him a mage. After that, Vincent walks over to his son, who had been reading that story. Shirone asks his father how he can use magic, and Vincent just laughs because magic arrows can't kill a bear in one shot, and an axe can't bring down a tree with one swing either. Meanwhile, two boys talk about him and get curious about him. Their attention turns to the book he's carrying, but the talk quickly gets mean, and one of them says the protagonist must be adopted, since he looks nothing like his father. He even claims the protagonist's real parents probably abandoned him because something was wrong with him. That makes Vincent angry, but Mead only keeps thinking about magic. To cheer his son up, Vincent says they'll buy some fruit in the city as a reward for the boy helping him with work. When they arrive in the city of Krecha, Shirone is amazed by the place. Vincent tells him to stay at his grandfather's shop while he goes to finish his shopping, and once there, Shirone starts helping his grandfather work. Still, it doesn't take long for him to get distracted talking about magic. Grandpa Martin has no clue what he's talking about, and mistakes magic for manga. He corrects him and points to his magic book. Martin finally gets it, but says he doesn't know much about magic, and suggests the protagonist learn more about it at the bookstore next door. MC heads there right away, leaving Martin behind with his book. At the bookstore, the owner notices Shirone touching some expensive books, and tells him to stay away from that shelf because those books aren't for common people. In the middle of that, a noble comes in and asks the bookseller to bring out the books he ordered. He uses the chance to secretly read them, but realizes there's nothing special about them. So after leaving the shop, he decides to follow the noble and see where all those books are going. Then he spots the noble sending the books off, and Shirone figures his father must have gotten his own book for free from a place like this. Thinking about his social class, he starts wondering what really separates him from a noble. Lost in those thoughts, he ends up walking into a place he shouldn't. The guard orders him out, saying past those gates is the noble's district. Then another guard takes one look at the boy and says, he seems suspicious. So they mistake the protagonist for a runner working with thieves and decide to take him in. But the protagonist slips away fast, and as he passes one area, he hears people saying some suspicious things. He figures out that the place really is a magic school. Then someone tells the group that he'll show them magic if they answer a question right. He asks what the first and most important talent for learning magic is. Everyone gives different answers, but nobody gets the question right. Then the man reveals that the most important talent for magic is vision. To explain, the teacher uses 1 + 1 = 2. People didn't always know the answer to that simple problem, but after a lot of study, someone proved those numbers make 2. With that, he says people can now accept it without going through the proof every time because it's already an old rule. Magic works the same way since it also has rules. They need vision to understand it. While explaining all this, the man leading the lesson notices Shirone and asks what he thinks about what he just heard. MC doesn't know what to do, but in the end, he chooses to climb the wall and join the class, feeling like if he let this chance go, he might never get another one. As soon as they notice the boy's clothes, the students realize he's a commoner and complain to the headmaster that he shouldn't be there with nobles, but the headmaster ignores them and tells him to join in. Then he says he wants to see magic with his own eyes, since he's only read about it in books. The nobles scoff, saying a commoner could never read a magic book, and the protagonist keeps asking to see some magic, even something small. Then Alpheus Miri says he'll show them wind magic, and when he uses it, everyone gets blown into the air. When it's time to land, Shirone panics at the fall, but the headmaster saves him before he hits the ground and asks what they thought of that small magic display. MC is stunned by his first real contact with magic and starts asking more about it. The students around him glare at the boy because they think he's being disrespectful to the headmaster. Still, Alpheus decides to answer. He explains that magic goes far beyond normal common sense. It's a mental action that explores the truth behind a certain phenomenon. The headmaster can tell Shirone doesn't fully understand yet, but he builds on Alpheus's words and says that because the phenomenon is unusual, that makes it an absolute truth. Seeing that, the headmaster asks if he memorized that line from one of his books. Shirone says books mostly hold ordinary ideas. Many great thinkers were mocked at first and called strange, but later their ideas became the new common sense. To the protagonist, truth is hidden inside the things people call unusual. After saying that, the boy asks the headmaster how he can learn magic. Alpheus notices how sharp MC is, and to show what he means, he asks, Shuaman to enter the spiritual zone. After the girl does it, Alpheus hides 6 coins in his hand and asks her how many he has. Shuaman answers correctly, so the headmaster explains that when a mage focuses, they become sensitive enough to know exactly what's around them. Pointing to Alpheus, he says some mages can even tell the exact number of leaves on a faraway tree. But to do that, a mage has to reach an extremely sensitive mental state called the spiritual zone. Once they reach it, they can control the phenomena around them. The headmaster says anyone can reach that state, so he tells Shirone to practice in a quiet place until he blacks out, because once he gets there, a whole new world will open up. But he says that if he can't feel himself, then he won't be able to black out. So Alpheus invites him to practice right there, saying that if he can't enter the spiritual zone, he won't be able to learn magic anyway. With that, Shirone starts focusing on feeling his body less as something physical, and more in a sensitive way. Then the headmaster asks what exactly he felt. The protagonist says he could hear every sound, but the students brush that off, saying he could hear things from that far away normally. The headmaster assumes Shirone didn't reach the spiritual zone, just as expected. Even so, he gently pats the boy on the head and says that if he keeps practicing, he'll hear even more in the future. After that, he ends the special lesson and returns to the school with his students. On the way back, he feels bad for MC. If the boy had been a noble and trained from childhood, he would probably be at the same level as his students. Meanwhile, Shirone jumps back over the wall and says the headmaster's training worked, because he became one with everything around him. He says he heard an incredibly loud sound and wonders if that was the spiritual zone. On top of that, he feels like his body split into countless pieces and spread across the world. Shirone freezes, and as he starts shaking in fear, he feels like he could leave his body and become infinity itself. As he runs through the city, he slams into a man. Shirone quickly apologizes, but the man still gets mad at how careless he was. Grabbing him by the shirt, the guy says that when someone causes trouble, they should make it up to the person they wronged. The protagonist apologizes again, but the man says that's not enough. Then he asks if the boy is with the gang of wolves trying to kill him. Right in the middle of it, a girl named M cuts in and asks what's going on. The man says the boy may have been trying to kill him, so he's just punishing MC. MC denies it and says he only bumped into him by accident. One of the men gets mad and swings at him, calling him a liar. Then he says the protagonist can make it up to them by bringing them his mother. The moment he hears that, MC's eyes change. It's obvious that line pushed him over the edge. The man goes back to hitting him, calling Shirone cocky as he keeps attacking. They start beating the boy brutally and Amy steps in telling them to stop. She walks over to him to check if he's okay. One of the men quickly tries to deny it, saying he never even touched the kid. Amy tells them to leave Shirone alone from now on, but one of them says they'll beat him, sell him to a village in the south, and not worry about anyone looking for him since he's not a noble. Hearing that, the protagonist starts calling for his father and mother in his head. Amy then tells the men that if they want to sell him as a slave, he can't have any flaws, so she suggests they inspect Shirone first to see if he's fit to be sold as a slave, and the men take that the wrong way, ordering MC to strip so they can start the inspection. But Amy meant they should only check his face. Right then, a fly starts drifting toward one of the men's faces. At that moment, Shirone feels the spiritual zone spread around him again. He also remembers the time the headmaster used a wind spell, just as the man grabs his shirt again and threatens to hit him. This time, Shirone blasts him with a burst of wind, sending the others flying with him. He stares at them up in the air, shocked by what he just did, and when they crash down, every one of them gets wrecked and starts begging for help. Amy rushes over and starts asking question after question about what just happened, because a boy like him shouldn't be able to use magic without being a noble. Then she notices people coming, so she slips away with amazing speed. Right after that, Shirone decides to leave too. After what he just did, he knows no one will want to hear his side, so he starts realizing how cold the world can be. When Amy gets home, she's furious that she got shown up by some random kid. Her father notices she came back earlier than usual and asks if she skipped class again. With her usual pride, Amy says she's already learned everything worth learning, so class isn't useful or fun anymore. Shakura just laughs at her attitude and warns that being smart won't save her if she keeps acting like that. After saying that, he notices she doesn't talk back for once, which throws him off. Then Amy brings up magic to her father, and even though he doesn't get where this is going, she asks him to introduce her to someone from the Magic Academy so she can enroll there. Sometime later, Vincent comes home looking for his son, but his wife tells him Shirone went to gather wood in the logging area. Since it's snowing hard, Vincent knows the boy shouldn't be out there, so he goes to find him himself. On the way, he remembers the first time he took the protagonist to the city. That day, the boy disappeared too. Even though Vincent suspected something had happened, Shirone kept insisting he had only gotten lost. Meanwhile, MC keeps chopping wood, and as he remembers the day he used wind magic, he admits he's never been able to do it again. It only came out by accident. Even so, while he still doesn't know how to use magic on purpose, he can still enter the spiritual zone. In that state, he can sense everything around him much more clearly. Touch, shape, even the nature of things. Using that focus, he studies the tree in front of him and finds a glowing point in the wood. Then he aims his axe right at that exact spot and strikes. With that single blow, the whole tree drops at once. Watching from a distance, Vincent is stunned to see his son use the thunder strike to bring it down so easily. Shirone realizes this is the first time he's pulled off thunder strike for real, just like the magic he used that day. That makes him understand he needs more knowledge. Otherwise, he'll keep relying on luck, and after that day, 3 years pass. During that time, he keeps training until he can use Thunder Strike whenever he wants. Then he notices he's already been in the spiritual zone for 5 hours. Shirone feels like his body has become one with nature, but even after all that time, he still feels there's more out there to experience. He remembers what the academy headmaster told him, that entering the spiritual zone is like stepping into a new world. Now he knows that description was exactly right. It really does feel like a different world. After that, he gathers his things and heads home. When he gets there, he notices white horses and a carriage outside, so he figures they have a visitor. As soon as he steps inside, his father tells him to greet the guest, who turns out to be the head butler of House Ogent. The man introduces himself as Temurin. He then says he came there specifically to see Shirone. That surprises the boy since House Ogent is part of the kingdom's second rank of nobles. Temurin walks up to him and asks if he can read. The protagonist says he's been reading since he was little, and the butler tests him right away. Shirone asks what he's doing, and Temurin says the boy has a strong reputation and can read even though he's just a woodcutter's son. Then Temurin invites MC to work for House Ogent. The job is to remove books from the family's huge library, and since there are thousands of them, the butler says it should take about 2 years. Others will handle the carrying, but the sorting will be done by the 2 of them. He guesses those books probably won't teach him enough to become a mage, but Temurin explains that only the protagonist and his family know about this work. If any of the books leak out, the protagonist and his family will lose their lives. Once he hears that, MC understands why his parents look so worried. Even though Temurin is strict about the rule, he also makes it clear the pay will be very good. He says they have to make up for the danger to him and his family, and promises more money than they could ever earn from hunting alone. That offends Vincent, and he says he didn't listen to Temurin just because of the money. He was also thinking about giving Shirone a chance to reach his dreams. Temurin laughs at that and says the protagonist has no real chance of building a successful future. Then he repeats that Vincent only agreed because of the money. Otherwise, he wouldn't let his son do this. Vincent fires back that he only accepted because Temurin promised MC could read the magic books. Temurin admits he did say that, but even if the boy can read them, he can't watch him every second. That makes Vincent remember him reading as a small child after his mother taught him a few words on a whim. By age 6, he was already reading books and teaching himself without Olina's help. That's when they realized how smart he was, and both parents started wondering if Shirone might really be the child of some noble. Vincent blames himself, thinking that if the protagonist had grown up in a noble house, he would have gone to school and had a much better future. But then he snaps back and reminds himself the boy is his son. Vincent says a woodcutter's son is supposed to learn how to work in the mountains. But when MC followed that path, Vincent became afraid. When he first met Temurin, he offered his son to help with the job, since the boy had read since childhood and could be useful. Back in the present though, Vincent says he regrets begging Temurin to give Shirone this work, because things didn't turn out how he hoped. With that, he orders the butler to leave his house at once. Honestly, Vincent is being a great dad here. As the tension rises, he steps in and says he'll accept the noble's offer. Tamarin repeats the warning that if any word about the job gets out, the protagonist will be killed, but the protagonist still insists. He says he'd never let anything leak, and even if things go wrong, he won't blame Tamarin. The noble says he'll come back in a week, giving the boy time to think. Still, Tamarin makes one thing clear. If MC enters the mansion, he won't be allowed to leave until the job is done. Then he leaves. After that, Vincent questions his son, asking why he accepted, and says he'll take full responsibility if he wants to refuse the job. But Sarmi just smiles and thanks him for giving him this chance. Then Vincent pulls his son into a hug and promises to protect him no matter what. A week passes, and just like he said, Tamarin returns with a contract. The protagonist's whole family signs the document, and then the boy is taken to the mansion. On the way, he pictures something in his mind. It's his parents, worried about him. Shirone reaches out with his own hand, but he can't reach them. Even so, he reminds himself that this job could be the biggest chance of his life, even if he's surrounded by powerful nobles. Still, he wonders if he can really survive these next 2 years. As they travel, Tamarin explains that House Ojin is in the city of Graeus, in the kingdom of Tormia. He says the family is known for raising official swordsmen. Their former head was a third-class official knight, and the current one is a fourth-class official knight named Bishop Ogent. On top of that, the Ogent family controls all the forces in the city. Along the way, they pass one of the family's most famous landmarks, a place called the Great Corridor. Shirone is stunned, and Tamarin tells him he'll be seeing many more overwhelming things from now on. Soon, they arrive at the office where MC will be staying. Once inside, Tamarin tells him to keep following, because he still needs to explain the job. When they reach the next room, Shirone is shocked. It's the Ogun family's huge library. Tamarin explains that the books there will be moved to a new library, and his job is to organize them. Every week, he'll get a new list telling him which books to handle. He also can't leave after work, and he may only enter the mansion with special permission. Even after hearing all those rules, he still agrees to stay. Tamarin then tells him he'll start the next day. Once the work begins, the protagonist quickly sees why someone has to manage the shelves. The system has to stay consistent. For example, a book called The History of Swordsmen could fit under history or professional fencing. While studying the system, he notices something else. Shirone realizes there's one thread that connects all knowledge together: history. Once you understand history, it becomes easier to build up every other field. Out of the 10,000 books there, around 850 are about history, so MC decides he'll read every one of them during his 2 years in the mansion. Then he hears a noise and quickly acts casual. He says he would need official permission to read the books, and Tamarin finds him working late again. That makes Tamarin suspicious, so he warns him not to ruin his special position so soon. If he breaks the rules, he'll be the one held responsible. He answers that he won't do anything wrong. Then the noble stops right in front of him, and the protagonist immediately thinks Tamarin has figured out that he's been reading. But instead, Tamarin just warns him to take better care of his uniform. The head of the family and the young masters use the library, and as an Ojin servant, MC must not embarrass them. He also tells the boy to fix his hair. Shirone relaxes when he realizes that those were the only problems. Later that night, he returns to the library to study and realizes learning all the local history won't be easy, but he keeps going. He believes that to truly use what you learn, you have to clearly understand each event. In the middle of studying, though, he ends up falling asleep. Then Tamarin catches him reading, but after seeing that Shirone isn't reading practical books, he chooses to let it slide. After 3 months, he slowly gets used to the job. One day, he notices that a young master took a book and never brought it back. Shirone worries he'll be blamed if it's lost, but the butler says the young masters are supposed to return books on their own. He also says nobles don't really care if books go missing, because the blame always falls on the servants. That eases the protagonist a little, since he figures there probably aren't any truly vital books in that library, but he's still worried about staying safe. After all, a commoner like him could be killed over something small. He also realizes even servants can turn harsh and cold just to make sure no tiny mistake happens. All of a sudden, the Lord's youngest son, Ryan Ogent, runs into the library complaining that he isn't allowed to rest. A man chases after him, and Ryan begs Shirone not to tell anyone he's there. When the man finally enters the library, MC asks who he is. The man says he's a fencing instructor, and demands to know where Ryan is unless he wants to get beaten too. Faced with that threat, Shirone instantly gives up Ryan's hiding place. Ryan tries to talk his way out of it, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, but the instructor just grabs him by the leg and drags him back to training. As he's taken away, Ryan promises to get revenge on the protagonist for ratting him out. MC tells himself he made the only choice he had. The instructor outranked him, and telling the truth was safer than lying. After that, Ryan is taken to the mountains for a month. As for Shirone, it takes him 20 days to finish his first book, but once he fully understands it, his speed jumps, and in just 4 months, he manages to read 82 books. He realizes the hardest part was only the beginning. Once he absorbs the knowledge from one book, the next books start connecting to things he already knows. So he figures that after 200 books, the remaining 650 should be much easier. Still, as he studies, questions start to bother him, especially about why history matters so much. But when he reads about the work of past mages, he becomes sure he made the right choice. He explains it like this: a scholar can create a theory, but a mage has to prove it in the real world. Scholars and mages may be similar, but not every scholar is a mage, because they can't enter the highly sensitive mental state known as the spirit zone. Shirone realizes that if he keeps strengthening his knowledge, he might even become a real mage. In the middle of these thoughts, Ryan interrupts him. The boy says he went through hell, and it was all the protagonist's fault. MC barely reacts and simply asks if Ryan really came all this way because of what happened that day. Ryan says yes. During training, his master made him climb a mountain over and over. Whenever he felt like giving up and falling to his death, he kept going by thinking about revenge. At that point, Shirone realizes Ryan is way angrier than he expected. So angry he's barely in control. Ryan says he trusted him to hide him, but he got scared and handed him over to the instructor. To Ryan, that kind of cowardice is disgusting. The protagonist argues that he didn't betray anyone. He only told the truth. Ryan fires back that he should have at least warned him first. MC quickly understands that logic won't work on a noble, so he just asks what Ryan wants from him now. Ryan notices that even though Shirone is still new in the household, he stays strangely calm. That only makes Ryan think he is looking down on him, so to settle it, he tells the protagonist to follow him. Soon, they arrive at the training grounds, and MC assumes Ryan wants to beat him until he feels better. He decides to accept it, since getting hit is still better than getting killed. But instead, Ryan hands him a wooden sword and challenges him to a duel. He says he's not a coward like the protagonist, and since the protagonist underestimated a future swordsman, he'll have to take his punishment from Ryan's blade. MC asks why Ryan keeps calling him a coward. Ryan says that as a servant of House Ogent, MC should protect the family, but instead he turned Ryan over to the instructor because he was scared of getting hit. Then Ryan tells him to come at him first, and generously gives him 3 opening attacks, since the size gap between them is so big. The protagonist sees the unmistakable look of an Ogent in Ryan's eyes, and that makes him nervous. If he breaks one of Ryan's bones, he'll be sent back home. So he decides to bet everything on those 3 chances. When he throws his second strike, Ryan realizes the boy has never held a sword before. For the last attack, Shirone decides to use the spirit zone. The moment his strike hits Ryan's sword, it snaps. After pulling that off, Shirone realizes his instinct was right. He used the first 2 swings to study his opponent, and on the third he used the thunder strike technique he had been developing for years. Ryan is stunned by what MC just did and asks where he learned swordsmanship. He corrects him, saying that wasn't swordsmanship. It was a thunder strike. Hearing that only confuses Ryan more. The protagonist explains that he used to go to the mountains with his father to cut wood. Since he didn't have the strength to chop trees the normal way, he had to improve his technique to make up for his weaker body. Ryan can't believe it. To him, there's no way Shirone learned that move just by cutting trees. He's trained in fencing for over 15 years, so he's sure that kind of skill doesn't come from simple woodcutting alone. That makes him think of his brother Rai. He remembers the day Rai learned the Ojin family's secret technique, And after Rai's skill surpassed his older brother's, their father admitted he had nothing left to teach him. After that, he decides to prepare a dinner to celebrate Rai's victory. Meanwhile, Ryan watches it all from the ground, still defeated, and grows bitter because no matter how hard he tries, he can never beat his brother. Back in the present, Ryan is still furious and says he can't let this insult stand. Shirone tries to calm Ryan down, but Ryan snaps at him to shut up. He tells him to keep his mouth closed. Then Ryan hands him a real sword. Ryan says he'll treat Shirone properly if he proves he can learn the sword-crushing technique. He goes on to say they'll fight again on this training ground in 1 month, next time with real blades. Hearing that, MC starts to worry. This time, he really could die. So he asks Ryan to rethink it, since he's never had real sword training before. Ryan reminds him he has a whole month to learn sword crushing. In his eyes, he has the talent to do it, so he warns him not to run from this new burden. If he does, Ryan says he'll hunt him down wherever he goes. The next day at work, Shirone complains to himself and decides he really can't trust people with black and blue hair too much. During his shift, he remembers that the head of the family has 3 sons and 1 daughter. The oldest son is an official 6th-ranked swordsman with black hair. The daughter, who has blue hair, also showed huge talent with the sword, but chose to become a pianist instead. Then there's Ryan Ogent, the 2nd son, often praised as a genius by everyone around him, and he also has black hair. And finally there's Ryan, the least talented child in the family. Even with a dedicated teacher, he never improved much. After thinking about all that, Shirone realizes he probably should have let Ryan win. The boy's pride is deeply hurt after spending his whole life being compared to his brother. That makes the protagonist start thinking about how not to die, because if he does, his parents will suffer too. So he pushes the whole thing aside and focuses on studying magic again. If he can learn some kind of defensive spell, he might at least survive the sword fight. Meanwhile, Ryan keeps up his daily runs. His master notices he somehow beat his own record, but Ryan brushes the training off, saying it's useless. That only annoys his master even more. Ryan says he's still standing after all that, so he wants something harder. Seeing this, the master becomes sure something happened to make Ryan this disciplined. Ryan avoids the question and says everything is fine. His master doesn't buy it, and guesses Ryan may have learned something new, then remembers Ryan already awakened his Shema. At the same time, Shirone studies the idea of Shema. It's described as a kind of imaginary body, something similar to a mage's spirit zone, but meant for swordsmen. The book explains that everyone has an image of their own body, but Shema takes that to the limit. Masters of Shema understand their bodies so completely they can even control their cells. After reading all that, MC realizes it's basically the opposite of the spirit zone, but he still decides to try it. So he turns all his focus inward and quickly starts seeing the first results. It feels a lot like entering the spirit zone. From there, reaching the spirit zone would mean erasing himself, but reaching Shema means going even deeper into his own existence. In the middle of trying, Shirone realizes learning Shema would be too inefficient. It'd be easier to train swordsmanship while using only the spirit zone. So he begins his training. As for Ryan, he keeps training too, pushing himself hard and wondering why he still can't use Shema. His master sees that he's gone too far for one day and tells him to stop. After that, they sit down and the master asks if Ryan knows what his strengths are. Ryan says no, he only knows his flaws. The old master tells him that kind of thinking is exactly what keeps him from being a genius. Real geniuses know their strengths and use them to grow. They don't waste time on things they know won't improve. But Ryan says he'll stick to his rule of training until death, because that's how he'll reach whatever goal he wants. Meanwhile, Shirone keeps studying swordsmanship and learns it isn't just for killing. It also shapes a swordsman's mind. He reads that there are only 8 ways to attack an enemy, and he trains to block strikes coming from all 8 directions. While practicing, he realizes the world of the sword is just as deep as the world of magic. Shirone apologizes to his parents, thinking he may not make it back home. Even so, he says he won't regret his choices. Even if he dies, he got to see an incredible world. At the same time, Ryan starts to think the boy might be as talented as his brother Rai. If that's true, Ryan swears he'll do whatever it takes to beat him. Then he charges straight at Shirone. He immediately realizes Ryan's swordsmanship is amazing and completely different from his own. Even so, he can sense the path of the sword. Ryan notices Shirone isn't just dodging. He's staring right at the blade without showing any fear. The protagonist says he can get rid of his fear of death, but he understands that fear is aimed at the future, and the future is just an illusion of something that doesn't exist yet. With that in mind, he explains that if people didn't think about the future results of their actions, anyone could jump off a cliff. Ryan starts to think MC may have learned to suppress all his emotions, but Ryan says he isn't afraid of dying either. They clash again, and Shirone quickly blocks Ryan's attacks, but then the blows start getting heavier. He realizes Ryan's speed is now beyond what his synesthesia can track. Ryan prepares another strike, and the protagonist feels cornered. He's about to lose the fight, and when Ryan sees him like that, he catches the fear in MC's eyes. That makes him feel stronger, and he boasts that this is the famed swordsmanship of the Ogent family. MC can't possibly endure it. Ryan is putting all his strength into every blow. Then he vows to crush him once and for all. In the middle of the duel, the protagonist notices something strange. If Ryan had angled one strike a little higher after attacking his stomach, he could have cut into his side and ended the fight right there. Instead, Ryan keeps focusing only on hard hits. Thinking it through, Shirone realizes Ryan understands swordsmanship less than he thought. His skills are strong, but with such a shallow grasp of the art, he won't go far. So MC decides to use that weakness against him. He stops planning to stay on defense and starts attacking too. That sudden change shocks Ryan because he thought he should be too exhausted to respond like this. When basic attacks start coming at him, Ryan tries to deny that he's having trouble blocking them. But then he remembers his brother's mocking smile, gets furious, and declares that he'll become the greatest swordsman in the world. With that, he rushes Shirone again. The protagonist sees that Ryan is attacking with pure force now and can't understand why. Ryan could win easily if he just used proper swordsmanship. Watching that reckless move, MC says he can't understand what Ryan is doing. As he tracks the sword's path, he realizes he can't fully read it. There are too many variables. Ryan comes in fast, but in that instant, Shirone catches something, and when the swords collide, one blade goes flying. He is still holding his sword, and Ryan can only wonder if that's even possible. At the very last moment, the protagonist changed his stance and struck upward, knocking Ryan's sword away. Stunned, Ryan asks what Shirone even is. MC never expected to beat him like this,